And welcome back to the High Low Sports Podcast YouTube page. DJ and Kelcey joining you again for a topic we've kind of wanted to discuss for a while. We wanted to wait till last NBA season was done so we could have the 2020 MVP and awards to talk about the best MVPs of the last decade. But thanks to 2020 being 2020, it took a little bit longer to get there. NFL and college football season started, so this got pushed a little bit. But here we are, finally with a few minutes as NBA season's ready to tip off again, 10 minutes after it ended. We're going to rank the top MVPs of the decade now, Kelcey. There's about 10 MVP awards, but like 7 winners. It's kind of an interesting decade, which is kind of the history of the NBA. You don't have a lot of variety.
Yeah, this one actually might have the most variety out of most of the recent guys. So I will say this most of the recent decades, but yeah, you're right. I mean, there's 6 people to choose from.
Like 6 or 7, and it's basically a little bit of, well, I picked this version of him as opposed to this version of him at this, just like which season you liked of his better. So, Kelcey, we're going to have you go first. Start from 10 and work your way to 1. Who is the least gangster of your MVPs to the best MVP of the decade?
Now, this one might be more blasphemous than most people, but look, when I start this off, I got to look at Giannis last year winning the MVP award. Sorry, Giannis. It's a shortened year. You only played like 45 games before they got cut off, if that many. I can't give you the full slate because, well, honestly, yeah, there wasn't enough games to be going through, and to even this out, really, just so everybody knows where I'm picking off of. I took a lot into win share percentages, and he had the lowest out of the last decade, 11.1 win shared percentage. So that means that basically, if he's replaced, you lose 11 wins. Guys on this list all had higher. Every single guy on this, every other MVP from this decade had much higher. So this was the lowest by far. And really, it just comes down to, yeah, it's a COVID season. So he's wide number 10. If anybody doesn't know what his stats were, 29.5 points, 13 rebounds, 5 assists, 1 block, 1 steal, 55% field goal percentage, which is fantastic. Don't get me wrong. I mean, it's not like he did anything wrong. But this was more of a victim of circumstance, if you will.
Let's not forget he was also Defensive Player of the Year, too. Let's just throw that on top of it. But still, not as good as the rest.
Yeah, no, exactly. I mean, honestly, it's just, like I said, victim of circumstance is really where he falls into on this one. Now, number 9. This one I know I'm going to catch some flack for. I have said it many times again when talking about this guy. I absolutely hate the way he's turned into an offensive player.
Say it ain't so.
It's the beard. Number 9, James Harden. 17-18 season. He is my number 9. Look, stats-wise, hey, by all means, stats-wise, he did his job. 30 points a game, 5 rebounds per game, 8.8 assists per game, 1.8 steals, 45% field goal percentage. Not that fantastic. Literally, I think it's, if I'm not mistaken, I think it's the second lowest of the MVPs during this last decade. So you scored 30 points a game, which is fantastic, but you did it on 45% shooting. What are you doing here, my guy? You could do better. And again, win share percentage, his was actually a little better. It was 15.4, but it wasn't even the best of his last decade, which I'll get to a little bit higher on this list of somebody who maybe should have gotten it, maybe didn't deserve it, and Harden should have gotten it. But for right now, it's the beard at number 9. I hate the way he plays offense. And the field goal percentage backs me up on this one. You can't be shooting 45% and be a high-quality MVP, in my opinion.
So what you're saying is he deserves an MVP, just not this one.
Right, yeah, just not this year. And I'll get to which one he deserves in a couple picks. But
oh, boy, here we go.
But number 8.
Say, you were right, though. He is tied for the second lowest field goal percentage during this time frame that we're going through as well.
Yeah, so it wasn't fantastic by any means. But number 8, it's the guy with the lowest field goal percentage of the last decade. Also, I hate the way he plays offense, and he's stat pads galore. Russell Westbrook, 16-17 season. So, I mean, look, yeah, he averaged a triple-double, 31.6 points, 10.7 boards, 10.4 assists, 1.6 steals, 0.4 blocks a game as point guard. Okay, cool. Even with all that, you only gave your team 13 added wins. That's all he was good for, with a triple-double in the season. That's horrible. That was tied for the second lowest as well on this list for wins shared, with number 1 being the Giannis at 11.1 and him at 13.1. And I'll get to the other one tied with him at 13.1 later. But, I mean, come on. If you're averaging a triple-double and you're only good for 13 added wins in a season, something's wrong here. something tells you that the stats aren't everything, and you're not really playing like your stats are showing if you're only good for 13 wins. So
So with him, would you want somebody else to have gotten it that year, or did he deserve it that year, just not as much as these other guys were? How do you have that one rated?
honestly, okay. He averaged a triple double. You deserve it for averaging a triple double. I'll give him that. He did fantastically for playing with first year without KD and kind of taking the team on his back. Okay, I'll give him credit for that. You take him away, OKC doesn't do as well. I think he deserves the MVP. I just don't think it was as high quality of an MVP race in that year as every other race.
So it is a chocolate cake. It's just not as good as the rest of these chocolate cakes, is what you're saying.
It's German chocolate cake. Somebody fucked up and put the coconut on there and ruined it for
Don't.
the rest of
Oh man,
us.
don't, Russell West. Okay, hold on. That's where we draw the line. Nobody in the NBA that's won an MVP deserves to have the coconut German chocolate cake associated with their name.
Have you seen the way he dresses? He gets a little coconut on his German chocolate cake.
Fair point, but still cruel and cold blooded, man.
It is what it is, man. It's at least I didn't say he was an oatmeal raisin surrounded by chocolate chip cookies. Okay, I mean he got a little better than that.
Why do you gotta be so hurtful, man?
Look, maybe if he didn't had that triple double, we would be talking something different here. But so number 7, and this is the one I was talking about with James Harden. Steph Curry, 14-15 season, and everybody's like, oh no, it's not Steph, not the chef. How dare you take it away from the chef? Well, first of all, he only played like 81 games, didn't even play a full season in this year. Only averaged 24 points a game, 23.8 to be exact, 4 rebounds, 7.7 assists. I mean, yeah, he averaged 2 steals a game. Playing that deep center field, roaming free safety, whatever we want to call it, role where he doesn't really have to do much, just cutting off the passing lanes. He did have a fantastic win shared percentage, 15.7, but compared to Harden that year, 15.9 was Harden's that year, and Harden had almost close to 30 points a game if I'm not mistaken. And Harden actually shot about 48%, 49%, which for him is, I mean, outstanding. I think this year, this is one I have on my list because Steph, he was gifted this MVP. This was not an earned MVP, if you will. He definitely didn't deserve this one. Harden deserved this one, but when I'm looking at this list, the top 10, no matter who they would have given this to, either Steph or Harden, this isn't a top 5, top 6 MVP race. This is you got to give it to somebody, so let's just give it to Steph type of thing. It wasn't. I don't know. It wasn't this year. To me, was an ugly MVP race. It wasn't as bad as the other ones because the other ones were just kind of meh. The stats wise were just not great, but this one is I'm there because Steph. Okay, he did decently to deserve it, but he didn't fully deserve this award for sure. But number 6 for me. I'm surprised you didn't have anything to say about that. I was ready for something.
No, it's fair. I get what you're getting at. I don't have too much. I'll talk more about that when my list comes around.
Fair enough. So number 6, the first Giannis year, 18-19 for Giannis. We averaged 27.7 points a game, 12.5 boards a game, 6 assists, 1 steal per game, 1.5 blocks per game. Mind you, he's doing this as a mix between a point forward point, something mix in between where he's guarding all 5 positions and being guarded by all 5 positions at some point in time. Also, most importantly, he had a 57.7% field goal percentage this year. If I'm not mistaken, that's the best in the last 20 years, since like 2002, 2003. It is outstanding. I mean, literally what he was able to do from the field offensively, second to none. Getting all these rebounds, all the points. To top it off, you get 1.5 blocks a game. That's not easy to do. His win shared percentage 14.4. So you see it's like a point and a half higher than the Russell Westbrook year. Little bit lower than the Harden's first or the 17-18 Harden award. But look, what he was able to do. This is definitely a year where he was so dominant, and he did it where he was still being challenged by LeBron. Maybe not as much as LeBron would have liked to be challenging him by, but he was still challenged by LeBron. So that's what I don't know. Maybe I'm being harsh on Giannis. Maybe it's buyer's remorse because it's so fresh. I don't know, but to me, I don't think either of his awards have been high top 5 level in this decade. But maybe it's just because these top 5 guys are, well, there's something else. Maybe.
So basically, you're saying these next guys are just different. This last one, you're not trashing Giannis this time like you did the first time.
Yeah, no,
You're
this
just
this one was
praising these
just
next five.
yeah, this one was just I don't know. This one victim of circumstance in a different way. If you both of them are victim of circumstance. This one just because the other 5 years were pretty darn good. So number 5, LeBron, Miami, 11 to 12, 2011 to 2012. So this is his first MVP in Miami. 27.1 points a game, 7.9 boards a game, 6.2 points, 1.9 steals, zero point 0.8 blocks, 53% field goal percentage. Now, if you hear me name those off and you're kind of like, wow, that's fantastic. You know, the dude averaged almost 2 steals a game as a power forward, 6.5 assists, or almost 6.2 assists a game, 7.9, almost 8 boards a game, 28 points on that big three. He should be much higher than that, right? No, 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 no. This one purely came down to when I was weighing down win percentages and what he had available to him, plus his performance, all around that year. It wasn't the full LeBron. It looked really good on paper, but to me, this wasn't the best LeBron year of his career. And so I had to put him at number 5. He had a 14.5 win share percentage, which, again, a little better than Giannis's at number 6. Not as good as Harden previous or Steph previous, but still fantastic in its own right. I mean, on average, these are about 6 to 7 for a top tier type player. So these are 14s for guys that are outstanding. So this is just, I don't know. This was, to me, this LeBron year was, I was going down my list and I couldn't figure out, this wasn't a top 3 performance. My number 4, it was just something different with number 4. This has just felt like a right place to put his first year in Miami just because it wasn't top LeBron in my opinion.
Basically, he just gets here because, well, you have to put him somewhere, and there's probably it sounds like you have a better LeBron coming up anyway.
Yeah, there's a better LeBron in a little bit. But number 4 is a guy that dominated LeBron in 2010 and 2011, and pretty much everybody in 2010 and 2011. His win share percentage was not great. It was actually the second lowest on this, or tied for second lowest on this list with that Russell Westbrook year. But Derrick Rose, 13.1 win share percentage. But this one's different. This one, the stats don't tell the story. This one is a pure eye test. This man, this myth, this legend, because for a year he was outstanding and unguardable. Literally nobody could guard him. He could do whatever he wanted, wherever he wanted it on the court. He was hitting threes at a high clip. He was hitting every shot at a high clip. Derrick Rose never hit 3-pointers, but he was hitting him at 38%, which for him is okay, fantastic. Like, sign him up. But this is, I don't know. He only averaged 25 points a game, 7.7 assists with a team that had Joakim Noah on it. You're doing pretty damn good if you're doing that.
Hey, they had Taj Gibson too.
Yeah, Taj Gibson. You're right. But no,
they're absolutely known for their offensive prowess now, both of them.
Yeah, exactly, right? That jump shot and then whatever Taj Gibson's right hook is, that's about all they're good for. But no, Derrick Rose, man, this is what put him on the map. This is kind of, unfortunately, also the next year is the year of the injury. So this was kind of the, oh no, the last brava of him. This will be the year that goes down in infamy for his career. But this was just one of the more outstanding single performances for a career. And they weren't like Russell's year. It wasn't like that stat padded triple-double. This was very much he's doing things that only he could do because that offense was trash. And he's doing it above and beyond. And yeah, it's only a 13.1 win share percentage added, but that doesn't tell the whole story for this. I think if you take him away, that Bulls team doesn't even make the playoffs. It's more detrimental than the 13 wins that they have for his win share percentage. So this to me, this one was an eye test to put him at number 4. That's why he's ahead of LeBron, but he's not. It wasn't a top 3 performance in my opinion. It's
definitely one of my favorite ones on this list to watch. Just seeing what he was doing, it was awe-inspiring. It was amazing. It felt like you were watching a movie almost with him. It was completely different looking compared to how a lot of other point guards have won the award. Different slashers because he's so much smaller. Like I enjoyed I love this Derrick Rose. I love watching him. I really wish we could have seen injuries not take a toll on him and see what happens.
Yeah, I wrote down next to this one. It was fearless. That was kind of my big takeaway from watching his stats that year. Everything he did was absolutely fearless, for better and worse.
Okay, Doug Peterson over there.
Dude, it was outstanding. I mean, really, like, you literally look at it and I just think of his double clutch behind, like literally holding the ball with two hands behind his head on the double clutch dunk, and you're just like, that's unnatural. You don't do that, and that was regular for him that season.
How are you hiding pogo sticks in your shins to be able to do that? That's not normal.
Exactly. So yeah, that's my number 4. I mean, honestly, if I could have given Derrick Rose more love, I would. But these next 3 performances were just insane. So number 3, the first, and at this point the only unanimous MVP.
Whoa, 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 whoa! Now, the number 3.
Number 3, Steph Curry from 2015 to 2016.
I'm sorry, guys. We're gonna have to take out the fire alarms because there's some smoke going on in the kitchen over there. My God, no love for the chef.
Honestly, like I told you guys, I used win share percentage in this one to help me out a lot on this.
Except with Derrick Rose.
Except for Derrick Rose, yeah. I mean, because that one was just he's top 5, but it wasn't. Yeah, that was the exception to the rule. This one is where it came into play. This is where it helped break down my tiebreakers. Steph Curry had an outstanding year. 30 points a game, 5 boards a game. Mind you, for a point guard with broken ankles and shins and everything else and hips, 7 assists a game and 2 steals a game. Again, 2 steals a game for Steph Curry with broken ankles. On top of that, his win share percentage, I feel like I said, 7 to 8 is what above average top tier guys are. Paul Pierce's was like about a 7.8 in his career. Curry's this year was 17.9. So already that's 2 points higher than anybody else I've listed on this list so far. And it was still lower than my next two performances. So this is, I mean, yeah, he was fantastic. He was unanimous, but it wasn't even the best MVP from our decade. And really, this one, he loses a little bit of points because of the competition that year for MVP. This year was purely Steph's year. I mean, really, from the go, it was, okay, well, as long as Steph, keeps hitting shots, he can do whatever. This is the year he walked down the court in San Antonio the last couple seconds and hits a shot from literally just inside the half court line. And you're just like, wait, what? That's natural? You can do that?
What he did in prime time against Oklahoma City, that call by Mike Breen. And from half Curry, Steph Curry pulls up, bang! Oh my God, what a shot from Curry! That will live in infamy forever.
Absolutely, yeah. No, just everything he did that season. This season really revamped our game today, the NBA today, in my opinion. This season was kind of the one that took it from, okay, we're going to play by stats to, oh wow, 3-pointers. Let's light it up. This is what changed it to me.
It broke the NBA.
Exactly. But speaking of breaking the NBA, my number 2 performance, and this might catch some flack, but you know what? You're the real MVP, Ma. That's what my takeaway is for number 2. KD 2013-2014. Absolute stud. Now, again, I'm going to tell you guys, win share percentage is the only reason he's number 2. Because statistically, he probably has the edge over my number 1 pick. But win shared wise is the only difference in this. KD ended with the season with 32 points a game, 7 rebounds a game, 5 assists a game, 1 steal a game, and 0.7 blocks. Last time I checked during this season, KD wasn't known for defense, but he still averages 1 steal and 0.7 blocks a game. I mean, all right, I'll take it. On top of that, he's giving you 32 buckets, 32 points over on the other end. All right, he's already unguardable. Let's just add in 32 points. ISO, I mean, he would run through catch and shoots, through screens. Everything he did was outstanding. His win share percentage, I mean, I've said Steph Curry's was great at 17.9. This was outstanding, 19.2 win share percentage. I mean, again, another 2 points higher, 4 points higher than anybody else on this list, and basically 12 points higher than your average top tier NBA player. So this is, I mean, absolutely insane season, but it just wasn't good enough. It was fantastic, and it was a great performance from KD. But when you consider the fact that the next year, well, breaks his foot the next year, and then he's gone out of OKC. So it was kind of one of those, okay, well, that was our last great KD moment, so yay, where's the rest of it? But I don't know. That's why I couldn't put him higher, just because our number one performance has been doing it for his entire career, almost 20 years now. LeBron, in the arguably, I think, in my opinion, the best LeBron we've ever seen in 2012 and 2013. Best all around from offense to defensive side of things. 26 points a game, 8 rebounds a game, 7 assists, 1 steal, 1 block. On a team where he had Chris Bosh, he had Udonis Haslem, he had Dwayne Wade. He was able to still get his buckets and help out defensively in a way that had not been seen before. And I mean, we complain a lot about the way he plays defense now, but this year, like that 12 to 13 year, the stats doesn't show it, but he was indispensable defensively. He could
He
lock
should
up
have been
anybody.
defensive player of the year, arguably. He was second in the voting, and if you ask him and 90% of everyone that's not Marc Gasol or the Gasol family, he probably should have had it.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, really, you probably asked Powell, and Powell would tell you that LeBron
No, Powell
probably
would lie
earned
for
it.
Mark. You could tell he'd look at him and be like, no, it's got to go to Mark, but then kind of wink like, I get what you're saying.
Yeah, that's probably a very good point. But no, I mean, outstanding. And it goes to show just how valuable he was when shared percentage comes into play. The highest recorded for an MVP, 19.3 win shared percent. 19 games this man wins alone by himself. So you take him off this team loses 20 games, is what you're telling me. And so that means no title. That means probably no playoffs, honestly, for Miami if they lose that 20 games. So LeBron is a 20 game difference maker in this season alone. And yeah, the eye test, the stats, everything shows it. This to me was the top MVP of the decade because it was peak. It was peak LeBron from a guy who was already competing for a GOAT status against MJ. It just goes to show you he's only competing really against himself at the end of the day because anything he wants to do, he can do it. And that 12 to 13 year, we saw him do everything he wanted to do and more.
That definitely was one of those seasons that kind of put him in that category of, can this guy be a true all-timer in that top 1, 2, 3 range? Because he had just won his first title too, so he was still coming for it. So it's hard to argue with that pick. And we will get to the list that's not being disrespectful to all these people in just a little bit. But first, here's a quick message from our sponsor.
What's up, everybody? It's Kelcey from the HighLowSportsPodcast. If you missed the brand new news, we have partnered with Fanatics.com. So if you're in the market for a brand new t-shirt, brand new hoodie, brand new jersey, no matter the team, no matter the player, no matter the sport, Fanatics.com is your place to stop. Not only does this help support our podcast, but it helps support the entire Unhinged Sports Network. Check the link in our bio or go to unhingedsn.com.
And that was a good word about Fanatics, our sponsor here at High Low Sports Podcast and the Unhinged Sports Network. Love me some Fanatics. Definitely been dipping into that cookie jar a little bit with this holiday season. So we just heard Kelcey's list for ranking the MVPs in the last decade. Now we're going to look at DJ's list that it will be a little bit less disrespectful, hopefully.
I don't know if it'll be less disrespectful. I don't know if you have that bone in your body.
We'll find out. Well, I'm going to start with the Chef Curry in 2015, his first MVP season. And the reason I have this one here is mostly because he kind of got it more or less just because he is the best player on the best team. He didn't have the highest stat line, as you mentioned. He only had, 23 points per game, 7 assists, 48% field goal, not his best shooting percentage. He was really good, but I think this one, like you mentioned, should have went to James Harden. And when I look through this list, there's only 2 of them really where it's like, okay, maybe someone else should have won this award. So I'm going to give the Steph Curry at the bottom for this one, just because he didn't really play a lot of fourth quarters either. They were just destroying everybody as a unit. Like they were the ultimate well-oiled machine. They were the new look Spurs, basically. They were like the 2004 Pistons on steroids. They were the ultimate. They were greater than the sum of their parts this year. And their thing was strength in numbers, and that was some strong ass numbers they had going for him.
Yeah, I think he only averaged like 28 minutes a game to back up your point on that. So yeah, definitely didn't play a whole game pretty much at all during the first part of the regular season.
And you went over how good James Harden was that year. Like he led them almost single-handedly that year too. So worthy of MVP probably, but I think there's someone else more deserving that year. Speaking of someone else more deserving, that's where my next pick comes in. That's this most recent year, Giannis Antetokounmpo. He was absolutely fantastic. Almost 30 points a game on 55% shooting, 13.5 rebounds, 5.5 assists. Defensive player of the year too. but I still think it was going to LeBron. I think before COVID destroyed everything, everyone was starting to look at LeBron and be like, oh, this isn't runaway Giannis after all. And I think if we don't have the pandemic that basically stops it right there, I think it's going towards LeBron, who is basically on like a Russell Westbrook-ish tear with his 25-ish points, 10-ish assists, and almost 10 rebounds, but on efficient shooting too, because, LeBron doesn't take too many terrible shots. And when he does, it's because he pulls up from the logo for a random heat check when he's not already shooting. He'll be shooting 20% from three and just do a heat check for fun because he's LeBron James. But more or less, I think this was going to be LeBron's award before COVID kicked in. Giannis was absolutely amazing. Not trying to take away from him. There's just these two are at the bottom for me because there's a strong case, in my opinion, that somebody else could have, should have, and probably would have won it this year, barring different circumstances. After that, I had such high praise for him when you were talking about him. The Derrick Rose 2010-2011 MVP. My favorite one to watch out of all these, seeing him just defy gravity and logic and the space-time continuum when he would go through the air, slashing, dashing, the ultimate one-man wrecking crew. He didn't have the best stats to go with it, as you mentioned. And 44% field goal percentage, 25 points per game. He did get 7.7 assists, the same as Steph Curry in his 2015. But Steph's dishing it to Clay and Draymond and Andre Iguodala, Harrison Barnes, Andrew Bogut. We mentioned Derrick Rose is throwing oops to Joe Kim and hoping he doesn't get fouled so he doesn't have to shoot free throws, basically, because yikes.
Yeah,
it was
and
the
then
Derrick
old man
Rose.
Carlos Boozer too.
Yeah, exactly. It was Derrick Rose's world, and we were all kind of just living in it. No one was able to stop him in the regular season, which is what we're talking about the MVP award. So we don't have to talk about the playoffs where he struggled a little bit, but regular season, and he was shooting pretty decent from the free throw line, about 80-ish%, if I'm not mistaken, high 70s. When you attack as much as he does, that's all you can really hope for. Slashers, usually the best slashers shoot in that percentage because you're not going to shoot 90% if you go to the free throw line that many times. It's just very unlikely. Not saying impossible, just unlikely. I mean, there's a reason Kevin and Steph and them shoot so high because they don't necessarily shoot 30 free throws a game. The exception being James Harden, but that's because he just gets fouled for dribbling.
Yeah, I mean, you can only shoot so many good free throws when your arms are dying from being slapped 30 times on the way to the basket.
When you throw the ball down with a ferocity stronger than Thor's hammer with each dunk, eventually your hands are going to get a little bit sore. And then I have next on the list, the following year's MVP, LeBron. Similar to what you mentioned, LeBron was absolutely amazing in that 2011, 2012 season. He was on the redemption tour because he was coming off the Mavericks loss. He was on a mission to not only prove everybody wrong, but proved he deserved to be here to show that he wasn't a choke artist, basically. 53% field goal percentage, 27 points per game, 8 rebounds, 6 assists. A vintage classic LeBron stat line, not too much to take away from, nothing out of the ordinary, if you will, for LeBron's career, which, by the way, that's just how damn good he is. We're saying, nothing out of the ordinary for him. His win share percentage was pretty decent, as you mentioned, too. 2 steals a game. His free throw percentage wasn't as good, but it never really is. And Kevin Durant was right there. This was kind of what Kevin Durant's coming out year too, because that was the year they faced him in the finals. So I think you could make a case because Kevin did have him beat with points per game, total rebounds per game by a small margin, blocks per game. 3-point percentage was pretty close. Free throw percentage was obviously Kevin. Win shares was close. Chris Paul also had a really good season with the Clippers, but I think LeBron winning this was a pretty safe one overall. Although he did have some pretty good competition, which I think propelled him over at Derrick Rose, who was an absolute wrecking crew of his own. And now your favorite guy on this list, James Harden. Well, yeah, like you said, he's been on – this probably wasn't his best season. Like, I believe he should have won it in the 15-16 when Steph did. But when you look at it, he still had 30 points a game, basically 9 assists and 2 steals. He somehow almost had a block a game, which is absolutely weird to see. His field goal percentage was about 45. When you shoot as much as he did, it makes sense. Win shares, 15. It was a really good season. Honestly, his stats say he should be top 3 or 4. But like you mentioned too, when you look at it, LeBron that year, with that Cavs team, what he was dealing with, and he played the full 82 games where James Harden played 72. 27.5 points a game compared to 30. Total rebounds, 8.5 compared to 5.5. 9 assists. LeBron has the lead in that, dishing it to who knows what, because that was the year when they got rid of everybody, basically. C.D. Osman, I mean, yeah, not a whole lot working there. At about the same steals, 1.4, a block a game, 55% from the field. Same 3-point percentage, which is crazy, 36.7%. James Harden and LeBron James that season, the same 3-point percentage. Free throws, it obviously gets a lot of whack where it goes 85 to 73. If we're just going down the line, win shares 15 to 14. You're splitting a lot of hairs there. So it's not that James Harden didn't deserve it, because he obviously did deserve it, but I think LeBron had a strong case for it as well, which he does every single year. If we're going to hold this against people, this is going to be a really boring list. So I got James Harden basically right in the middle for that reason.
So what I was saying is, we could honestly, to your point, we could make every single year on this entire decade a LeBron award if we really, really wanted to, because at this point, the dude's just been out so outstanding. So yeah, to your point, we could make this a LeBron case every single year. So
Exactly. And then we're going to now crack into my top 5, which this one I think we'll basically agree was not unanimous, but we knew who this MVP was going to be. Kevin Durant. You the real MVP, the best post MVP speech, name it, nothing but positive to say about that. 50% from the field, 32 points a game, which when you kind of look at past MVPs, guys that are averaging more than 30 points a game really aren't shooting above 50% for the most part. I mean, Giannis was close with his 55%, seeing as how he dunks on everybody, but he didn't technically crack the 30 points per game mark. You talked about Russ and Harden and all those other guys. When you start scoring that high, eventually your field goals, you got to shoot a lot to get up that high. And even going way back, like Michael in the 90s, he would get 30 points per game at 49% field goal. So Kevin was doing it efficiently, and he did without Russell this year. This was the one-man wrecking crew. He did this all by himself. And it wasn't like when other guys do it by himself, because they won 59 games doing that. It was the early onset of Steven Adams. He had not arrived yet. Nick Collison, who's arguably the greatest supersonic / OKC player ever, it seems like, because he's always there. Derek Fisher, the ghost of Serge Ibaka, Reggie Jackson. This is right after they and our favorite NBA bust, Hasheem Thabeet. If you haven't seen our episode on Top NBA Bust, he was on this team. There was no Russell Westbrook because of the injury. James Harden was just traded, and they were coming off the finals loss, so a little bit of they weren't just coming off it. They were a little bit removed from it, but a little bit of a revenge tour, if you will. They were kind of bouncing back, as the previous year was their, I guess, NBA Finals hangover. You don't see it as much in the NBA like the NFL, but it still can apply. It still does apply. And Kevin carried them to almost a 60-win season by himself while doing it efficiently in typical Kevin Durant fashion. So, Ma, you the real MVP. I have you at 5 right now. It was another one that I liked it more than some of the other ones, but I'm going to give some of these other ones a little bit higher ranking.
Yeah, to your point on, you talk about the guys scoring over 30. I was looking back at it, and the closest statistically to his season was AI in 01. And AI in that year averaged, I think it was like 42% from the field. So
Exactly. That was almost a full 10 percentage points different with the same points per game. And I know it was a different type of game, and they have different play styles, but that's just my point.
I mean, he averaged about the same stat line that KD did. And it's just to tell you, that's how good KD was that season.
And he still blew out with rebounds, because he's obviously an entire foot taller than Allen Iverson too. So, I mean, that's just how great he really was. And then next I have, not last year, but the year before Giannis, where he averaged 28 points per game, roughly 12.5 rebounds, 6 assists, 1.5 blocks, and an just outrageous 58% field goal percentage. And I know he Euro step, spin, dunk, dribble, go gadget, Michael Jordan, Space Jam arms on everybody. That's basically what his game was. But he was a revelation this year. I don't think we all knew he was kind of good. He was coming along. He was an all-star. This year he burst on the scene as, oh, by the way, guys, I might be the best. Get out of my way. I think he took this MVP similar to how other guys have taken it. Like when Kevin Durant, we knew how good he was. He burst out and took it. Steph Curry, his second MVP, he burst out of nowhere and took it. James Harden, just guys that came onto the scene out of nowhere and took over. So I got that Giannis here at number 4, just because he was so dominant in the regular season. There were people talking about if they were going to roll through the playoffs undefeated, or at least in the East.
Yeah, I mean,
obviously that didn't work, but like the amount, I don't want to say the amount of fear he put in other teams, but basically how no one really thought anyone could stop him. They thought they thought of him as an unstoppable force.
Yeah, I mean, and nobody really stopped him until the Raptors and that fence defense they did. That was the only way that they stopped him. And now that's become a thing to stop Giannis, is build a fence and kind of escort him through the paint. But I mean, that was the first time anybody had ever done it, was Toronto that year in the playoffs.
And yet there he was. He's still absolutely dominating too. I mean, he gets an MVP after the fence. So clearly Giannis is doing some good work. And at number 3, this one's probably going to kill you a little bit inside. Russell Westbrook. He obviously his play style is not very conducive to long-term winning. It's not the best to watch, but he averaged the triple-double. He did it. They talked about after Kevin left, could Russ do it? Because he did kind of flirt with a lot of triple-doubles the previous 2 years. And did he probably step out a little bit to get to it? Almost guaranteed. The following years, we know he did. Everything after that, it was really bad after that. But this year, it was similar when Kevin won his MVP. It was him and who else was there with him? I mean, Steven Adams, Steve Adams just kind of came on these last 2 years as, he's a really good, viable starting center. At the time, he was just a starting center that terrified people. You're dishing it to really no shooters. I mean, no one else on that team is really shooting. And Westbrook was hitting game-winning threes like against Utah where he just catches and fires from a deep three. His field goal percentage was trash because he was literally trying to carry the team by himself. It was like Will Smith in The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air just taking every single shot and just not letting Carlton touch the ball. That's what I think of when I think of that Westbrook team. And in the playoffs, they looked really good in that first-round series against James Harden and the Rockets. I know we're not applying playoffs here so much, but it's just another notch in his cap to how good he really was this season, in spite of the stat padding tendencies, as you mentioned as well, which I think got a little bit worse in his future MVP bids. I think this one was more organic, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it was probably the closest to organic you can get, averaging a triple-double if your name's not Oscar Robertson.
Or I guess if LeBron or Luka wanted to do it, because they do it pretty well too. But
yeah, it just feels weird to say that. I don't know. You can see he pushes Steven Adams clearly out of the way for a couple of rebounds late in the season, and you're just like, okay, guy, come on.
I mean, yeah, but when you're that close to it, you might as well go get it. And even Steven Adams, like, yeah, at that point where it's like, go get it. We'll just make sure no one gets in the way. Like, but
yeah, that's true. And I mean, to your point of who he had to pass to, I think it was only Patrick Patterson. Patrick
Patterson.
Yeah.
And you're getting 10 assists doing that, almost, 10 and a half assists passing like that. I mean, it helps when you basically are forced to beat the heck out of the ball and you touch the ball for 45 consecutive minutes, but he still turned it into a quality basketball team. That was the 6th seed, which is the lowest out of all of these. Nobody has been a lower seed than that. But it just kind of shows how much that team really, really needed him. Win shares or not, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah, fair enough.
So I'm at 1 and 2 right now, and we kind of know who they are. This was tough because these are 2 of the best MVP seasons we've ever seen, in my opinion. So at number 2, I think this one's tough, but I'm going to put 13 LeBron here. He was so dominant. Like you mentioned, he should have been Defensive Player of the Year. 27 points per game, 57% field goals, 8 rebounds, 7 assists. The defense, the blocks, the 27-game win streak for a 66-win team. A team that ended up winning in the finals by the slimmest of margins against the Spurs. Watching them during the regular season, during that win streak, people were thinking, wow, they might break this record. They might win more than 70 games. They might be the 73-9 team. Who can stop them? They're cooking. But they weren't quite cooking like Steph was in 2016. Don't get me wrong, LeBron should have been the first unanimous MVP. That one voter who picked Carmelo is an absolute chode and probably should have not been allowed to vote ever again.
That was the dumbest vote I've ever seen, by the way.
So in my opinion, these are both unanimous MVPs, and LeBron deserved every bit of it to be unanimous. But Steph, what he did in 16, it was Steph's world and we were all living in it. There were doubters everywhere because he doesn't play defense. Somehow gets 2 steals, even in that free safety look because you have Clay, Andre Iguodala, and all them. Jump shooting teams can't win that many games. 73 wins. They broke the win record. He's just a shooter. That's all he can do. He's pulling up from the logo against those Oklahoma City Thunders for, what a shot by Curry that we mentioned when you talked about it. He broke the NBA. He physically destroyed it because now it is just hucking and chucking all over the place. No, a post center like Jahlil Okafor, that's maybe a bad example, but a post-centric center cannot play in today's league because of Steph, what he did that year.
Actually, that's a good point because you look at Boogie Cousins since that year and he's
now a sniper.
Yeah.
He's a point center sniper, basically. You have 50% field goal for a guy that shoots outside that often and a smaller guy, not like Kevin Durant's freakish self, and when he pulls up from mid-range, it's untouchable. And then you have 5.5 rebounds from him, 6'3" listed, but probably closer to 6'1" and some change, $105 maybe, that many rebounds, 6.5, 6.7 assists, which is kind of the flow of the game. Steph Curry's really good. I think he's a solid playmaker, but he's not LeBron or guys like Chris Paul that truly make plays. He's a guy who makes plays in the flow of the offense when he's not trying to pass it behind his back. I think people give a lot of flack for this Curry season because of what happened in the playoffs, being down 3-1 to the Thunder, then choking a 3-1 lead like they did. But we're talking MVPs and regular season. And Steph Curry broke the NBA in that year. LeBron was absolutely fantastic. Honestly, you could say he might have had the second best MVP season of all, at top 5 all time as well. They both were, in my opinion, unanimous MVPs. I'm going with Steph because what he did was absolutely magical. LeBron just dominated in the ways that we see him dominate all the time. Then sprinkle on some defense and had a better supporting cast that helped him have a stupid long win streak. I think the second longest of all time. But Steph had like the third, fourth, fifth longest win streaks of all time, all in the same season.
Yeah, that season was incredible.
I've never seen anything quite like it too. When you looked at it too, like there were other guys that you were like, oh, well, maybe, I mean, Kawhi Leonard was second and Kawhi was good, but he had like 21 points a game, like 6 rebounds. Nobody on here even garnered attention when you look at it. They're like, okay, this is Steph's award. LeBron was third on this list and nobody thought about it. Russell Westbrook was on this list. Kevin Durant was on this list. Chris Paul, Draymond Green somehow got on the list because of Steph Curry, which is crazy to think about.
Yeah. Honestly,
he played 70. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, but he played 79 of the 82 games. Steph only missed a handful of games, and some of those were just sitting out too. And then you throw in win shares on top of that, 18 wins for Steph Curry on a team that we consider one of the best of all time. He still mattered that much.
Yeah.
Win shares per 48 minutes, 0.318, which was significantly higher than most others on this list.
Yeah, it really was. I think the biggest thing too you have to look at for his stats, assists for him. Their offense is so pass and move heavy. It's kind of just the luck of the draw if you get an assist. It's not like you can be Chris Paul and dictate when you get an assist, or LeBron and dictate when you get an assist. This really comes to who came off the screen in the best position. That's who gets the ball next. And if you happen to be going towards the basket when you get the ball, well, that person gets an assist. I mean, that offense, especially that year, was just so fluid, so pretty. Everything about it was so much different than we'd seen recently. And you mentioned, breaking the league. They literally broke 2K that year. He was so incredible.
2K hasn't been fixed since they did that. And I mean,
exactly.
Draymond, your power forward averaged 7.5 assists on that team.
Yeah,
but regardless of position,
de facto point guard.
He is one of 2 guards. That is how I see it.
He's the shorter of the two. But I gotta say, I respect your list. I respect you gave a little bit more credit to wins, especially for Steph, than I did. But I respect that. That's something to keep into mind because that team is considered as one of the greatest. And well, why isn't the unanimous MVP off that team number one? And I get that. For me, it was just hard to put them above that year we saw KD, that year we saw LeBron, where they were just exponential superstars.
But that's our rankings for us. Let us know who you guys think had the better list, DJ. But anyway, so Kelcey, any last words?
Let's not get crazy over here. You decide to put Russell in the top 5, you monster.
You kept Russell out of the top 5, you monster. Fair enough. All right. Well, check us out on Unhinged Sports Network every Thursday at 1 o'clock Central Time, 2 o'clock Eastern Time in the afternoon. Spotify, Apple Podcasts, all your favorite mediums the next day. Check out our Twitter page, our Facebook page for updates, comments, concerns, just to tell us we suck or you love my list better than Kelcey's, whatever you need. Subscribe to our YouTube page as well. We'll be dropping some videos like this. I'm not going to say regularly, but whenever we can get a chance to do it for things that we don't fit onto the podcast as well. So until next time, guys, see ya.